There's really a fundamental question here. In a $16 trillion economy, why can't we create jobs? But somehow the solutions so far have been ambiguous at best. The grand poobahs on the left calling for greater spending, more government programs. Those on the right say, cut taxes and less regulation. That'll solve what ails us. Melissa Francis now breaks down the battle between the left and the right over both what to say in this political year and what, if anything, can really be done.
It's the big issue for most Americans.
It's jobs. It's jobs, jobs, jobs.
Jobs, jobs, jobs.
That makes it the biggest issue of the biggest political campaign.
He has not created more jobs for the American people.
The economic vision of Mr. Romney and his allies in Congress was tested just a few years ago.
In Congress, they can't even agree the other side has a plan.
These are many of the 30 jobs bills that have passed the House but are currently stalled in the Democrat-controlled Senate.
Republicans in the House of Representatives have refused to take action to create jobs.
Is this just partisan politics or something deeper?
The problem is that there are dramatically different lenses through which we see the world.
Republican Senator Mike Lee.
That government cannot create wealth, and because it can't create wealth, it can't create jobs.
Argument number one, whether government spending creates jobs.
The stimulus did work, but it just wasn't big enough.
Tamara Drown is from the progressive think tank Demos.
So you think the problem is that we haven't spent enough in this country?
I think in the short term, all of the trends, all of the economic trends point to the fact that we need another stimulus.
If we put more money into the economy, doing things that need to be done.
Congressman Chris Van Hollen is a member of the Democratic leadership.
Repairing bridges, building new bridges, repairing and building transit systems. Those workers have more money in their pockets. They can go buy more goods and services. That means companies can sell more goods and services.
This has been one of the slowest recoveries I think that most people have ever experienced. Democrats would say that that is because we didn't spend enough.
Making government bigger, this whole idea of deficit spending stimulus, isn't supported by the facts.
Dan Mitchell is a senior fellow at the Cato Institute, a free market think tank.
The notion that if you borrow money out of the economy's right pocket and put it in the left pocket, you're somehow richer. It didn't work for Hoover and Roosevelt in the 1930s. It didn't work for Bush in 2008, and it hasn't worked for Obama.
If spending isn't the answer, what is?
What do you think would be a recipe for putting people back to work?
All we really need to do to have success in the long run is to make sure that the private sector is growing faster than the public sector. It's all about the size of government.
Of course, it all depends on what numbers you use, and each side has their own statistics and economists to prove their point of view. So who you believe sort of depends on which numbers you trust.
Which leads to argument number two, hiring more government workers.
Teachers and cops and firefighters.
That's a sedative, not a stimulus.
The president is an enthusiastic supporter.
Congress should pass a bill to help states put thousands of teachers and firefighters and police officers back on the job. They should have passed a bill a long time ago to put thousands of construction workers back to work.
Last time I checked, with very few exceptions, firefighters are not federal employees. With very few exceptions, public school teachers are not federal employees. This is not his business. That's the business of state and local governments. There's no amount of persuasion that's ever going to convince me that government can or should ever just flip a switch and say, okay, jobs are created, because it doesn't work.
What works to prop up demand when it's not there on its own is investment and government spending. It is the only sector right now that has a real chance of reviving the economy and putting Americans back to work.
And how to pay for that? Argument number three, raising taxes on the rich.
I don't think we risk putting the economy in jeopardy by asking those who have done phenomenally well in this country to pay a little bit more to help us all get back on track.
Why not have the wealthy just pay a little bit more to help get us through this period?
Keep taxing the wealth creators, the wealth generators, the job creators, the producers, the entrepreneurs, the investors. Just beat them over the head with a stick again and again and again. When you tax those productive behaviors at a higher and higher rate, you discourage people from producing.
Which leads to argument number four, should corporations pay more?
Corporations have actually done quite well recently, but the problem is there's not enough customers.
So how does taxing them more solve that problem? It seems like that makes the burden even higher, and then they need even more customers.
Corporations are actually sitting on record profits across the board. They're sitting on a lot of cash.
It sounds like a cyclical problem that there's sort of no answer to, because every time I talk to a CEO of a company, he says, I don't want to hire a new worker because I don't know what my cost is going to be. I'm sitting on that cash, so I don't need a government bailout down the road. I'm trying to protect my company.
If we get back to the idea of investing in our infrastructure, this is something that businesses actually do agree to. Our infrastructure is really outdated. So when you look at things like giving the United States the world-class infrastructure it used to have, that's something where CEOs and business associations are really supportive of.
If there are any CEOs in favor of higher taxes on companies in order to give politicians more money to spend on failed stimulus, the shareholders should grab those CEOs, tar and feather them, and kick them out of the company. The reason some companies are sitting on cash is because politicians have created a very unfriendly investment climate. They're just waiting for the government to stop doing things that discourage wealth creation and job creation.
There is one thing they agree about. What will happen?
More paralysis.
Gridlock.
But they can't even agree on what that means.
The optimistic way of looking at the job situation is we have gridlock now. That's actually a good thing. So if we can simply stop the government from doing new bad things, then we'll get back on a steadier keel.
Hopefully we'll come out of the election and maybe be able to hit reset and get something done.